So here we go with another edition of Bantams Small Talk, Isolation Episode 9. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be with the former City legend CES PODD, and we pronounce that CYRIL CES PODD. How are you doing? Have you been keeping well today? And thank you for your time today.
Yeah, no problem, Nick. It's great to speak to you. I've seen a couple of your interviews. Really impressed. You know, it's nice that you can, during this period, that we can have a chat with old friends, especially former Bradford City people like yourselves. In fact, you're still there. I'm here in the Caribbean, not that I'm complaining, but it's nice to have this contact with you. Thanks.
Yeah, I've been over to it's St. Lucia before, so really nice.
Yeah, I remember the City team that got promotion to the Premiership came over to St. Kitts when I was there as technical director. It was great to have them over there in the Caribbean, you know. So they started, I think they were the only Premiership team and still are to visit the Caribbean islands and played there.
Yeah, I remember that. I was watching it yesterday, a little bit of it.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, so before we start the interview, I've got an old videotape of you on here, and I'm hoping to convert it to DVD. I don't know whether you can see that. My first question is, how did you first get involved with doing that, you know, presenting it?
Well, I used to do some work with the BBC in the local radio station, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but someone approached me saying that they wanted to do an interview with me, you know, to put this video together, and I'm interested. And I think it's because I'd had that experience working with the BBC before.
All right, okay, because it's quite a while ago since I watched it, and hopefully I have got a video player down there, but I'd have to plug it in. Now, starting with you were born in 1952, is that right?
That's right. That makes me how old? How's your maths?
Yep, and obviously, looking at your stats, you started your career in 1970, apprentices 502 with 3 goals. Can you? Is that information? That's what I was saying on the internet, anyway.
Yeah, well, it's actually I started my career in 1970 and ended it at City in '84.
Yeah,
and then I went on to Halifax for a couple of years, and then on to Scarborough after that. And I ended my career professionally at Scarborough. Yeah.
You did. First of all, can you tell viewers how you first became involved with Bradford City, what attracted you to them, and how you signed and became a member of the first team, please?
Yeah, that's. I mean, at the time, you know, I have to bring this into it because every time I get interviewed, it's usually something to do with racism and stuff like that, you know. So it's very difficult not to mention that. But at the time that I was, there weren't very many black players playing at all, you know. And I'd had trials or I'd been asked to go for trials after being seen by scouts of Manchester United and Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I'd actually gone for trials and. You had to send a form off to Manchester United. Yeah. The scout gave me a form. When I sent it to, one of the questions was your originality, where you live, and things like that. And I didn't get a response afterwards.
Right. Yep.
And I actually went to the Wolverhampton Wanderers for trials, and when we got there, they didn't even pick me to the team. So I had to come all the way back from Birmingham, really disheartened.
Your camera's frozen. You're back again now. Keep going.
Oh, I'm back, okay. So so I went for trials at Wolverhampton Wanderers and didn't get it on the field. So I decided that was it. You know, I always wanted to be a footballer, but I felt that because there weren't black players at the time, it was really difficult for people to take you seriously.
Okay.
So I went to, my dad said, well, you know, you should really go to college and I was doing graphic design, and he said, well, go to that college, which is where I got accepted, and he said, if anything happens, then great, you know, but don't rely on being a footballer. So that's what I did. When I went to Bradford Art College, I met a guy called Mick Illingworth there, and his dad used to do some scouting for Bradford City, and he saw me playing at, we used to play at lunchtime, and he said, you really ought to go to City for a trial. He said, my dad will get you a trial there. And he was, true to his word. His dad contacted me, look, would you come down? So I went for the trial, and when I was there, they picked 2 teams again, and believe it or not, I wasn't. And then, luckily for me, the first team manager, Jimmy Wheeler, at the time, was at the game, and he said, right winger, by the way. So I heard Jimmy Wheeler say, look, I'm looking for a young right. He said that we need to develop. He said, left back, he said. Anybody here play left back? So I put my hand up. Yeah. I was right winger, but I thought I had to get on the field. And that's how I got my trial. I got on the field. Jimmy Wheeler was watching. And he came up to me and said, look, son, I've got to leave, but you need to come training. I want you to come training on Tuesday with the amateur players. And that's how it started. When I got there, do you remember a coach? I don't remember, you wouldn't even been born yet, Nick. But there's a coach called Maurice Conroy.
No, I don't.
He was the coach at the time. Him and a guy called Bernard Ellison.
Yeah.
They were responsible for the youth teams at the time. And I'm telling you, Maurice was an ex-army man, and I have never worked as hard. I worked to get fit. He used to put you through a program. If these guys think they go through training programs now and it's tough, they needed to have somebody like Colin. But he got me fit. I was a bit skinny, but he was the one that got me fit and ready to play professional football. Him and Bernard Ellison. Yeah.
And can you remember perhaps your most memorable game, or other managers you played under Bradford City? Your most memorable game and your best part of your career with Bradford City?
Yeah. Well, obviously the most memorable game for me was my debut against Chesterfield. I always remember the manager calling me and Jimmy Wheeler and saying, I thought I'd done something wrong because we played against Newcastle, the junior team. And, I'd gone up and I'd tackled one of the players there, and I remember Bernard saying, "Cess, careful, you're going to get sent off." And then the came my again, and I hit him again, and the referee showed me a yellow card. So the next day, at the weekend, on the Friday, the boss calls me into his office, Jimmy Wheeler, and I'm thinking he's gonna give a telling off for what happened, getting a card. And he said to me, "You'll be playing on Saturday against Chesterfield."
Yeah.
And I was like, you can imagine as a youngster there, you're getting your first chance. So I've gone from being really scared to being elated. I'm going to make my debut against Chesterfield. So that's probably the big memory of my whole career, my first game. I even remember sitting on the coach. Do you remember, I keep asking you, you won't remember this, but there was a goalkeeper called Pat Liney at the time. Great goalkeeper. And on the way to Chesterfield, I always remember this. He sat next to me, and he was telling me what to expect. And he even brought up the thing was the first black player. Yeah. Most of them would have seen. Don't take. Great mentor, and I really respect him for that. And we went on and we won that game. I think Bobby Ham scored the goal, and I got. I remember looking at the newspaper for the first time because I saw my name in it. And I think I got 9 out of 10. I got man of the match for that first game. So I remember.
Yeah, I've had a look on YouTube for some of your goals, but there don't seem to be anything. But I've seen that obviously your current role, you're helping the St Kitts FA at the moment.
No, that was quite a while ago. Yeah, the St Lucia. I'm the technical director for football in St Lucia at the moment.
Yeah, you are.
I used to be the TD started at St Kitts. I did that for 2 years, and then I did St Vincent for 2 years, and now I'm in St Lucia. So that's my role here. And the weather's great. But let me just. What I wanted to say. I'm glad you've given me the opportunity because I don't really get back to the UK that often.
Yeah, no problem.
And I always had you know, a great relationship with the crowd, the fans there, and I really wanted to respect them. And I really want young players as well to understand. You know, I wanted to share this with someone for a long time because, as I say, you hear a lot about racism in football, and that's never going to be able to stop that altogether. But I also remember my dad saying to me, "Listen, I just hit him against, I forget who it was, but it was after the Chesterfield game, and we were playing at home. And when I ran onto the pitch, the opposition's crowd started chanting, 'Bradford's got a nigger,' right? And then, you know, it shook me up a bit. And our fans started chanting the same thing. Then they started chanting my name straight after. And then they said, "CES PODD, give us a wave." I waved at them, and they clapped. So I've gone home, and I didn't take this. And my dad said to me, he said, "You have to get this, and well done." He said, what did you think? I said, "Well, I'm not sure they like me." He said, "Let me tell you something." He said, "Racism about how you accept it." He said, it's about the way you look at it." He said, "There are two different types of racism." He said, "Did you hear the opposition shouting at you?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Friendly or aggressive?" I said, "I felt it was aggressive." And he said to me, "What about the Bradford fans started shouting at you and shouting?" Because they did it as well. They said, "Bradford's got a nigger," and then they shouted, "Set my name," and asked for a response from me. So he kind of put it to me that way. He said, "Well, when they were shouting, when the home fans were shouting, you know, what was the mannerism like?" He said, "Did you feel it?" Yeah. And he said, "Okay, what about after they finished shouting, 'Bradford's got a nigger,' what did they shout after that, straight after?" I said, "It was Spod set," and then they were clapping. I said, "Okay, so that means they respect that you hear, that they've got a black player and they've accepted you." He said, "Then what was there?" Then I shouted, "CES PODD, give us a wave." And he said, "Just give them a wave." I said, "Yes." He said, "And then?" He said, "They all clapped." He said, "There you go. That cemented your relationship." He said, "And I bet you any money the next time you play and the crowd shout that, I bet the same thing will happen. Your crowd, our crowd, will do this and shut them up because they respect you." And that's how I always looked at it. I took that as something really important in my career because I had a bond with the players, with the crowd, and the managers who I played under, and there was a mutual respect on both sides.
Yeah, that's good. Going back to with your other clubs, how did they compare with Bradford City and with, you know, obviously Halifax Town, Scarborough and Ossett? What was the difference there? What managers did you play under there? Under the other three clubs?
Well, I mean, at Bradford, I played under, I think it was either 7 managers, you know.
Yeah.
There was, the first one I'd say was Jimmy Wheeler, played under Brian Edwards. Do you remember Ray Wilson? Ray Wilson was an ex-England player who was in the World Cup winning team. He was there, like caretaker manager for a while. And then there was George Mulhall. You know, do you remember John Napier? No, quite a few. I think my favourite manager, I have to say, was Brian Edwards. Brian would do anything. Brian Hitman, he was a physio, he was a manager that understood, he wanted you to do well, and he was a big inspiration for me, so I really liked playing under him. I think the most successful manager, I was there, was probably... This is a tough one, really, because
no problem.
I remember Bobby Kennedy. You know, he had a really good spell, but Roy McFarlane to him, and Roy was doing lots of promotion. You know, so there were some really good managers, and you know, they went on to do all right themselves. Trevor Cherry, as you know, was
I remember that name.
You know, and he died. He died last month, I think. So yeah, I played under manager. But I think when I left, I went to, as you said, I went to Halifax Town after that. Had there, but then I retired. I got a job working at Leeds United and decided that was it. I was the community officer there and the coaching director for the development centres. So I thought, okay, I'll pack it in then. Then I got a call from Neil Warnock, who'd just taken up Scarborough. And Neil, probably one of the most persuasive managers you've ever met. And I'm saying, Neil, I've retired. And he said, oh, I've just found out that the Football League now says you can, instead of having to be voted in if you're an amateur team, if you win our league, we'll get promoted. He said, and I've got a team together. All we need now is a captain and a coach and a fullback. He said, and you can do all three. That was my first conversation with him. So, and I said, well, I've just retired. I've got a job at Leeds and everything. He said, no, don't retire yet. Come and see me. So I went to see him, and he persuaded me to give him 1 year.
Yeah.
And we did that, and he was right. We put a nice team together, and we won. We were the first team to be promoted, on merit into the Football League, and we had a really nice time. It's a shame that club's gone into liquidation now, but Neil Warnock was the first person who started, to get promoted into the Football League, and I was really proud to be a part of that. So outside of what I achieved at Bradford has been playing making the most appearances. I think that's up there with my achievements as well, being one of the first players or captains to manage to captain a team that went into the Football League for the first time.
Yeah, we'll come back on to Bradford City in a minute, but can I ask you what made you want to become a footballer, and who inspired you? Perhaps who was your idol when you were growing up as a kid? And how you trained with?
Great question. It's a good question. First of all, my family were cricketers. My dad was a cricketer. My brother was a cricketer. Great cricketer. Well, I mean, I think he should have been a professional, but he never pursued it. And I was the only family who wanted to be a footballer, and that happened because of the 1966 World Cup.
Yeah.
That was my first World Cup that I remember as a kid. I was only a youngster. I think I was about 12 or something like that. And I was watching. There was a guy called Eusebio playing, Pele, and I remember them two playing against each other, and Pele having, reputation that anybody would have been proud of, and everyone was watching this black guy play football. In England, any black player. It was only Albert Johansson for playing Leeds, who was black in the Football League. So I'm watching Eusebio and Pele being the greatest player in the world, and remember them two playing against each other. I think the final or something like that. And I remember two things I remember really well. I remember Pele getting kicked about because his reputation, for him. So the Portuguese weren't messing with him, and they actually kicked him out of the game. But I think Eusebio, I'm sure he scored twice in that game, and what a performance he put on. So you've got watching two of the best players in the world, and they're both black, and I'm thinking, must have a chance there. And every single evening I used to go down and watch the game. Used to be involved in the church choir, and we had a team of our own, and we used to meet after every game and pretend to be a player, and pick two teams, and I was always Eusebio or Pele or something like that, and that's what inspired me, and I knew I wanted to be a footballer at that time, and because of that, they were my role models.
That's brilliant. I was going to quickly ask you, sticking with Bradford City if you don't mind, or if you want to change it, teammates. I don't know whether you ever watched Soccer AM that's on in the UK, where we ask about teammates. So I've got a few questions for you, and then we'll just go into a few more recent ones, and then obviously we'll let you get back to your office. Out of your teammates at Bradford City, who would you say was your mate there? Who was your main friend? Who did you get on with the best?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I had when you travel, you normally room with someone, and mine used to vary. there's a player called Dave McNiven I used to room with. He was from, signed him from Leeds United, good little player, stocky. You know, he was somebody that I roomed with. But I just remember rooming with one guy, the best player I've ever played with, technically, Ronnie Brown. Ronnie could match anybody that I know in terms of ability, but he was the laziest man in the world. I just remember Brian was the manager at the time, and I think it was Brian who signed him. And his turn is the scruffiest man I've ever seen, right? And we're at the team talk, and Brown is sitting down. But Brownie's got his legs like this. This is after we just played the game, and we'd look. And he's got his legs like this, right? And Brian's going through the explaining, guys, come on, we should have won that game. Brownie, you missed a sitter. You know, that's not like you. And Brownie's got the paper, he's got his legs crossed like that, and he's reading it, right? So Brian spots him, and he's like, Brownie, I'm talking to you. And he looks at him and says, what's your response? And he said, what's your response? Put that newspaper down. He says, my boss. He said, in here, I got a 9 out of 10. That was it. That was what he was like. So I'm saying, if his attitude towards the matched his ability, this guy was one of the best players, and comparing him against the best. I mean, I remember going on somebody invited me to take part in a promotion game in somewhere in Italy, in Spain it was, and George was there, and he was in the team as well. I remember playing alongside him, and I'm thinking, this is one of the best players in the world, but he cannot match Ronnie Brown. Brownie was unbelievable. I don't know if anyone remembers him even, because he wasn't in the game as long as he should have been, just because of attitude. But when it comes to skill and ability, this guy was up there. You know, we've had some really good players. You know, Bobby Campbell. You know,
yeah, oh yeah, I remember him.
Goal scoring. You know, you can't anywhere. He could strike a ball well. He could head it. You know, he's strong, aggressive, everything that you need. And in today's game, he'd still do well. You know, and obviously there's Stuart McCall. You know, Stuart first coming to us from. That's right. Yeah. You know, he's playing for a local team, and he was spotted by one of our ex-managers and brought in. And I knew from scratch this kid was going to be something special. Great attitude, work ethics, understood the game. You know, I'm not surprised he's gone on and done so well. You know, we didn't keep him very long. He went to Everton, as you remember. Then he went to play for Rangers and came back and managed. And I'm so glad we got him back. Is this his third spell with the club now as manager?
Third or fourth, so no, yeah. And hopefully, if next season's on, I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, he deserves it, you know. And it's great when you see ex-players become managers and do well, because their heart's in the club. And I think for club like ours, like Bradford City, where we haven't got you know, a amount of money, the same type of budget as bigger clubs, I think we need people who love the club and really want them to do well. So I'm wishing him all the best. I'll be back at Christmas, hopefully, if the pandemic. So I'll be going up to speak to him, see how he's doing.
That's good. Talking of football, do you think we'll ever return to football as it was? Do you think we'll eventually be back at Valley Parade? Obviously, it don't look like we're going to be this season, but next season, and when do you think that'll happen?
You know, I don't really want to guess. As I say, I'm here stuck in St. Lucia. Well, not stuck, I'm living the... So for me to guess, I do listen to Talk Sport on the radio. I get that. I know that everyone wants to get back, and like every footballer, they'll be chomping at the bits. But I think common sense must prevail. When you have a pandemic like this and no one quite understands it, I don't think any chances should be taken. We shouldn't be taking any chances here. As TD for football in St. Lucia, when I discussed these with the president, we will not be taking any risks. So our football will only go back once we follow the government guidelines.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, and we feel everyone is safe. So I don't know is the answer to that. I really don't know.
Yeah, I will just ask you a few more questions because obviously I know, like you say, you got to get back to your office. But going back to teammates, you told us your most skillful player. Who would you say was perhaps who had the best dress sense, and perhaps who had the worst dress sense? And what what they were?
Listen, I'll tell you. I remember Joe Cook, the other black player, right? Do you remember? Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Joe Cook was a big striker, and I remember, him coming to the club, and he looked like Sidney Poitier, really charismatic looking, good looking guy. At the time, neither of us had girlfriends, and I'm thinking, I look at he had all the gear and everything, and I'm thinking, when we go out, at least we've got to get a girlfriend. We've got to continue play, because when you're a footballer, you're not into girls at all. My focus was I want to be a footballer, and so all my mates would be going out and everything. And even at the age of 18, me and him, we didn't even have a girlfriend. So anyway, I'm thinking we've got to have a chance here. So we went out, and this girl, and Big Joe's looking at her, and I'm thinking, I'm going to learn from this. So he's talking to her, and he's going to her, do you play football? That's his first question to the girl. So she said, she must have been trying to be polite and everything. She said, yeah, I play, not very good. It's just the goals did you score last season? So, girl, this is his child play. So I'm thinking, we're never going to get. So I said to him, listen, Joe, you cannot. He comes over. He says, what a drink? So I said, oh yeah, get me an orange juice. So he said, I'll get her a drink. So I said, look, Joe, you cannot be talking like that you should just speak to her with things she'd be interested in, like fashion and stuff. What's fashionable? So he goes up, and he goes back and he says to her, what do you think of George Best then? That was his way of speaking to her about somebody who's fashionable. Those days George Best was the man. So to cut the story short, we were both single for quite a long time, I think. But he was a character. He was always well dressed. Great guy. And I think he met a really nice girl, and they have kids together, and they have a business in Cleckheaton, I think, a gymnasium. But I miss players like that, not being able to stay in touch with them. And then there was like Don Hutchins, do you remember?
I do, yeah, definitely remember him.
Yeah, really nice guy. But yeah, I think Bradford City have always had teams that work together, and we always based our ethics on the team being able to look after each other and working together as a team. Yeah.
Before we go into more recent times, somebody told me, they messaged me on Facebook, because I mentioned that I was having this interview. Is it true that you had a testimonial game with Bradford as well?
I did, yeah. I think it was 1980 or 81, I forget exactly.
Yeah, no problem.
So I had a testimony. It was great. I invited players who were playing football in that era, and that was great. People like Justin Fashanu, Terry was at Leeds at the time. I can't even remember everyone that came. Vince Hilaire, players that you probably have heard of if you're into football, even though that was quite a few years ago. But yeah, it was brilliant. A completely black team, and that was the first time I'd seen so many black people at one game. And I felt it did a lot to inspire young black players to want to be footballers. I think since the era, you've seen more and more black players come into the game and making an impact. So that was my contribution to move the game forward in terms of recruitment. And yes, I look at the game now, and there's so many quality players, and not just either. And I think it's important that when we get into situations like this, when you can speak on behalf of black players, and what's going on racially, there's always two sides, you know, and I think, you know, players portray themselves. People like Mark Wright, I love listening to him because he's always, he'll talk about the racism thing, but he understands the game, you know, and he's a good influence for players because he came from a very poor background, he made it as a player, and he's a great example of if you're dedicated and you're disciplined, you know, you can get success. So some great models out there for young black players, and I really like that.
And we'll go with one more question about your past, and then we'll move on to the modern. Can you remember your first ever pair of football boots and what they were? And perhaps why you wanted them?
Sorry, but I'm just...
No problem.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, my football boots.
Yeah, first ever pair and why you wanted them. What attracted you to them? Were they bright? Were they white?
Has somebody been updating you on my past?
No, I've just seen these sort of questions on TV, so I thought I'd have a go.
Nick, my first pair of football boots were brown and tapping studs. My dad got them for me, right? He got them. Yeah, his mate was a rag and bone man, right? John, his name was, and we weren't well off at all, and I didn't have any boots, so my dad asked Johnny if he'd get me some, you know. And Johnny said, I'll get you some. He said, you have to pay for them. And he brought me these brown boots up to your ankle. And they weren't, you know, we have screwing studs here. They weren't screwing, you had to tap them in. So the studs had little, like, spikes. And you put them along the sole of the boot and you tapped them in with a hammer. They were my first pair of boots. It lasted. You can imagine, can't you?
You can.
I played for the reserves, for the junior, Bradford City juniors, and we had people, you won't know these guys, but I hope they're listening, because I'd love to make contact with them again. There was Steve Arney, Dick Exley, Peter Hunt, you know, and they gave me so much, Kevin Bushell, right? They gave me so much stick about these boots that they lasted about 3 days, and I had to get some new ones. And so I'd say we weren't that wealthy, so I managed to get some stylo boots. I don't know if you remember them, but they were quite fashionable at the time. Weren't the best, but they were close to it. So after them brown boots that Johnny got me, my first pair of boots was a set of stylo boots, which I love. But I love that story because nowadays, I mean, it's all about your boots. They will only play in a certain make, but I just played in whatever they gave me, and I wasn't into that.
Yeah, so we'll move on to more recent times now. Obviously, it means you'll still watch the club, Bradford City. What's your most memorable recent time, although it might be quite a few years ago? Would it be the win over Chelsea? Would it be the win over Northampton in the playoffs? What's your most recent favourite memory with Bradford City? Perhaps through watching them, over the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be when they got promotion. I know, I mean, who would have thought Bradford City? Jeffrey Ridgedale, was it? The chairman. He invested a lot of money, a lot of risk, really. Bought players in, and they got promoted to the Premiership. And who would have thought? And I was so fortunate to be in a position where I was the TD in St Kitts at the time, and I was able to invite them over to St Kitts before they played in the Premiership. So that was a special time. Taff was there. He manager. Paul Jewell was Paul Jewell.
They were brilliant.
Yeah, and Terry Orith was the assistant. And they came up and we had a great time. I don't think it's that though, because I think there was St Kitts, Bradford City, and the Canadian under-23 team, and Canadian under-23 team actually beat Bradford. But that wasn't the thing. The main thing was for them to get a good rest and enjoy the Caribbean and go back and prepare properly for the trip. And they did all right that year. They had a lot of respect for Paul, the way he handled that team. Because that's not easy, taking a team like that into the Premiership. Didn't they didn't do bad at all. So yeah, that's probably one of my main memories. And obviously, you know, after that, it was difficult to stay in touch with what was happening. But
yeah,
you know, Wembley and stuff like that, playing against Chelsea, you know, and that, you need to tell me about that, because I used to get bits from that. You know, I mean, you were there, Nick.
Unfortunately, I was on holiday for that game. I was actually in the Caribbean when it were happening, the Chelsea game,
So
and I can remember, can't remember where we were, but we were in one of the Caribbean islands, so I couldn't watch the game. And I remember getting off the cruise ship. Obviously, it would be your time at that time. I thought, I don't know what the score is. Anyway, couldn't get the internet, so we rushed back to the ship, and but there's lots of other cruise ships parked in because it was a busy day. Anyway, all of a sudden, somebody from another ship came towards us, looked at me, and was City shirt on, pointed at the shirt, and said, "I don't believe it. I've been watching the game, and you've won 4-2. I said, "No chance." And I got on the ship, and it was true. And I put it this way, I kept my City shirt on all night and partied.
Well, I remember, because City were losing, weren't they? They're losing 2-0 or something like that.
Yeah, they were 2-0 down. And then obviously pulled it back 2-1 at half time.
Yeah, you know, I mean, these are things that you. But I mean, when I was playing, the big games that I remember was when we beat Liverpool. Remember that?
Yeah.
We beat Liverpool at home in the league. Bobby scored, Bobby Campbell. So we beat them 1-0, and then we had to go to Anfield and play them their ground. And I remember, you know, thinking, we've got a chance here. But when you play at a club like that and you're not used to it, as you come out of the tunnel, you can hear the chant. You know, and Kenny Dalglish, it's the first time I played against anyone of that stature, and you can hear them shouting his name, Dalglish. And you can almost 1-0 down before you even get on the field. You know, so big things like that would put you, and you're able to gauge, do I think I can handle this level? And I always felt that I could do, but I always used to go back to my dad, what my dad said. He said, when you're looking at racing and the way you it's really about you. You have to be comfortable, because the sport that you've chosen or the profession you've chosen, it's not just about ability, it's about your mindset. And he said, if you're happy at a club, you could move to Liverpool, he said to me.
Yeah.
You might not be there, and they might not accept you the way that the Bradford fans have accepted you. And I always had that in my mind. I mean, I remember I asked for a transfer once, and it was because I was on probably the worst paid players there. Didn't really want to leave, but I needed to get a raise, and it was Roy McFarland who was there. So I asked for a move, and I remember talking to me and offering me a good term, actually. You know, and then I go back to, I think it was Roy who was the manager, and I remember that said it, and I'm thinking, what happens if I go? I looked on Portsmouth was the other end of the world, and I'm like, what if I go and they don't like me? So, and I didn't even know what I was going to say, but as soon as I walked into the room, right, and it wasn't much, I'm talking about a couple of pounds, something. I said, I'll take it. That was it. You know, so when you look at situations like that, you big games, and it's really about what you're in it for. I wasn't really in it, if I'm honest. I wasn't in it because I wanted to play. I was in it because I enjoyed playing, you know. That classic was about for me. And I fell in love with Bradford City, you know. And if playing a higher league, I would have wanted it to be with them. You know?
So I'll go on for one last question, and then if there's anything you want to promote, anyone you want to mention within the people that you're with now. But I don't know whether you know that I play for the Disability Club, Bradford City Disability, and obviously things are on hold at the moment. I don't know whether you've ever heard of my main coach Paul Jubb and Jamie Shaw, who sort of helps out. What do you think it's like for people to be able to, my teammates and the coaches, to be able to represent playing for Bradford City and the hard work of all the coaches? What does it mean to you? Have you ever seen any of the videos on YouTube?
I haven't. I have to admit that. You know, as I say, because I'm based in the Caribbean and the job that I'm doing, I'm pretty taken up with, you know, look, my role here is I'm responsible for development in St. Lucia.
Yeah.
So I'm always busy. You know, either until the pandemic, we were traveling a lot with national teams and things. So I'm always doing research. But when I spoke to you and you asked me if I do this, I did do a bit of research. So I know that you're involved with the type of thing you're involved in, and that's why I accepted this call. Really, I think you're doing a great job. I think it's really important. Any charity that you can link to the club, and I know we've always had the type of supporters who would back anything like that, and I think it's really vital. And I commend you for that. You know, my charity, you know, presently is the job that the NHS and people like that are doing for this situation, the pandemic that we're in now, especially for the, you know, because they're the ones who are at risk. You know, if there's anything that we're able to do for those NHS staff members and stuff, then I think they're fully well deserved it.
Yeah, it most certainly is. So I basically want to thank you for your time, and if you ever do come back over to England, as I promised all my interviewees so far, is that if I manage to see you someday, it'd be absolutely fantastic. And what I produced last year was some Bradford City Disability FC badges, and it's basically got the Bradford logo on. It says Bradford City Disability FC and Bantams Small Talk. I'd like you to have one if I can get it to you somehow. One of them will become yours, but something for you to keep.
That'll be great, Nick. I'd look forward to that. Well, I'm hoping that by December, you know, all the travel restrictions would have been lifted. If that happens, then I'll definitely be coming back to the UK, and I'll make sure we catch up. We'll have a York beer.
Sorry, say that again.
I said that we'll definitely catch up when I come
definitely.
back for Christmas, and we'll have a Yorkshire pint. I'm missing.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, I'll get them in for you, buddy. So thanks for your time, and obviously, what are you going to do now once you've done this call? What are you doing for the rest of the day?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have to go back to the office. I got a call. We've got a Zoom meeting. Zoom meeting is the thing for everyone now, isn't it? So I have to prepare for a Zoom meeting for our coaches, our coordinators. We have 19 districts in St. Lucia, and they are leagues. So I'm doing a Zoom meeting for them to explain to them how to develop their strategic plan. So that's going now. Not as exciting as speaking to you, though, Nick.
Yep, that's absolutely fantastic. So thanks for your time, and I'll try and upload it later today. And have a good day.
Yeah, you too, Nick.
Cheers, buddy.
Nice speaking to you, son. Take care. Look after yourself.
You
Stay
too.
safe.
Thanks, Will.